Pastel Poppies with Ms.Boley. So for this project, you will need your visual journal or a sheet of paper, a pencil and an eraser. It's also optional to have a ruler, and I'm going to use oil pastels. So part of the project is learning a new material, trying out a new material and using some oil pastels. However, if you don't have access to oil pastels, wax crayons are a good substitute, and also colored pencils or pencil crayons will also work as well. So just use whatever materials are available at home. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at some examples of oil paintings of flowers. So what I would like you to do is have a look at all of the examples and think about similarities that you're noticing between them. So this one is number 1. Here's our second example. Here's a third example and a fourth example. And a fifth example. So what similarities did you notice? Let's take a second and I'm going to show the examples again and give you some time to think about what similarities that you're noticing between all of the examples. So here's example number 1. Example number 2, example number 3 and 4, example number 5. All right, so if you want to go back and view the examples again, you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to ask you to pause here and then just jot down 2 or 3 similarities that you noticed. So 2 or 3 similarities that you notice between those 5 examples. It doesn't have to be in like something present in every single example, but maybe something you notice between a few of the examples. Okay, so pause here and we're going to share some similarities on the next slide. So here are some common similarities that students usually say. Your similarities might be the same and they also might be different. So your answers might be varied. So the first similarity is that the flower fills up the whole page. The edges of the page are like the flower touches the edges of the page in most of the examples. I think in every single example. And so it's super close up and zoomed in on the flower, in the middle of the flower for the most part. The petals of the flower are usually touching the edges of the page, which I mentioned before. The colors are usually brighter than real life. So even in the example where the flower was mostly white, the colors were quite bright, very vibrant. The paintings only show flowers. They don't show any tables or vases or landscapes in the background or anything like that. It's just zoomed right in, flowers only. Usually there's only 1 or 2 flowers shown, except for the one example there was 3 flowers. So it's usually just, not more than 3 flowers. And they're abstract. So that means that it doesn't look exactly like a real flower. It kind of looks more like the idea of a flower. Some of them I might think, well, maybe is that a flame or something else, because it's abstract. All right, so those are the similarities across those examples. The other similarity is that they're all done by the same artist, who is Georgia O'Keeffe. So just a tiny bit of background info about her. She was an American painter. She lived for a very long time. She lived to be 98 years old. And she's most famous for her abstract paintings of flowers, those ones that you've seen. She also did that last example, the 5th example was a poppy. So she's very inspired by the natural world, flowers, landscapes, those kinds of things. All right, so let's get into the project itself. So why are we doing this? Well, first we learned a little bit about art history, we did a little bit of art analysis where we were looking at similarities of art. And secondly, we're going to explore some techniques with oil pastels. Step 1 is to create a square on a page in your visual journal. So I'm making my square 6 inches on every side, and then I'm gonna make a little 6-inch by 2-inch rectangle, and then I can divide that rectangle into 3 little boxes. So I'm gonna make them each 2 inches. So these are where I'm gonna be practicing my techniques with oil pastels. So here are my oil pastels. They're called oversized oil pastel, and they're the brand Fun Stuff. So whatever brand you can get is totally fine. You can try this with chalk pastels if you have those. Your pastels might look a bit different than mine. As long as they say oil pastels on the box, they're all good. So these are the 3 techniques we're gonna be trying out. So let's get started. So for layering, I'm gonna choose 2 colors, 2 pastel colors, and I'm going to either use the top tip of the pastel, or another option is I can break it and I can use the side, like put it so it's laying down, and I can use the side of the pastel, and I'm gonna color the whole box in with 1 color. All right, and then I'm gonna take my other color and I'm just going to layer it on top. So layering is when we color 2 different or 3 different colors or 4 different colors on top of each other. And it kind of mixes and creates a new color. So our pastel packages have kind of limited colors. So when we're trying to match, we can use layering to create new colors and create different textures as well. So I'm even doing a 3rd color here. So I'm adding on some yellow to see if it creates a similar green. So that is layering. All right, so for blending, we're gonna also use 2 different colors, and we're going to color in the corner with 1 color, and then color in the other corner in a similar way. So I'm gonna have my 2 different colors almost touching, but not quite. Okay, and then I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to push the color over top of the other color. So I'm kind of blending them. And I can also try with paper towel. And you could also try with Q-tip. I feel the paper towel works the best for me. And if you're using crayons, wax crayons, if you don't have oil pastels at home, this works really well with wax crayons. Something else you can do to blend is use a white pastel or a different color pastel on top and layer it. And the white actually acts really as a really effective blender. So it kind of pulls the colors together. For Sgraffito, I'm going to color with some bright colors, just whatever ones I choose, however many I choose. I can do some layering as well, but I'm going to be coloring over these colors with a dark color. So I'm going to just do some warm colors under here, and then I'm going to use a dark blue on top. Typically, it works the best if you use black on top, but my pastel set doesn't have black for some reason. So color with a dark color, preferably black if you have it, to cover up the bright colors you put underneath. And then I'm going to scratch in. So Sgraffito just means to scratch. So you can use your nails, like what I'm doing here. So I'm just using my thumbnail to scratch into the pastel, and it's leaving some cool texture. It works really well too if you have something sharp, sort of like this mechanical pencil with the lead pushed down, and that actually is working a lot better. I can make much more detail that way. So try your scratching Sgraffito technique out and see what happens. Okay, so now we're gonna start on our poppy piece. So I have that square, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this reference image here of a poppy, and I'm gonna choose a corner where I'm gonna make the center of my poppy. You can do your center of your poppy wherever you want, but remember, we're taking inspiration from Georgia O'Keeffe, so all we want is for all of the poppy to be touching the edges of your composition, so the edges of your square that you have on your paper here. Okay, so I'm using pencil, so using the reference image that is on the video here, or you can search up your own on Google. You can search up close-up poppy. I'm gonna do a quick sketch with pencil, and then basically I'm just going to color in using those techniques that we just learned with oil pastels. All right, I'm done my pencil drawing, and now I'm gonna try filling in some areas of color using my oil pastels. And really, I get to choose whatever colors I want. I just want to make sure that I use red on the poppy so that people can recognize it as a poppy. And then my background, it's up to me. And I want to make intentional choices with the techniques that I'm using. And make sure that I'm actually attempting to use some of those techniques. So layering, blending, and sgraffito. Alright, so I got my background done, and I'm bringing the reference image back for this part because I am actually looking at a real poppy. And I'm noticing that there's some shadows where the petals are sort of crinkled, and so I'm actually going to just block those in using a purple pastel. So I'm using the purple as my dark shadow color, and then I'm going to use red as my kind of middle ground, and then I'm going to use maybe yellow or orange maybe as my light. So I am looking at, I know these are supposed to be abstract, but they're also inspired by real life poppies, and looking at a reference image can't hurt. So here's the reference image for a little bit longer, and like I said, pick some colors to be your dark values. And my set doesn't actually have black, but it's usually nice because sometimes black can cause your colors to get a little bit muddy. So using a blue or a purple is a great option for a shadow, or even a green. Alright, I cannot wait to see your pastel poppies. Don't forget to try to include at least 2 out of those 3 wonderful techniques that we learned about: layering, blending, and sgraffito. Have fun, and thanks for watching!